the Dallas Cowboys offseason, the major domino is already in place. They signed Dak Prescott long-term, which is what they needed to do. Because they restructured the contracts of Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and La'el Collins, they have about $16 million in cap space, and some potential cuts could be Anthony Brown. I don't think they do that. Greg Zuerlein, I don't think they do that either. Or Chris Jones, their punter. I think that's a possibility. But if they restructure the contracts of Amari Cooper, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Ezekiel Elliott, they can create up to $48 million in cap space. And I think that's a lot of money to work with and to make this team as good as it can be for next season and hopefully compete for a title.
Yeah, and I think the biggest domino, like you mentioned, is the one that already fell. The quarterback was the big question. Were they going to bring back Dak? Were they going to look to recoup through the draft or go out and get one of those names that was on the market this year? And I think they did the right thing bringing back Dak Prescott. I kind of talked about it during the segment on him, but he's their guy, and he's been there for a few years now. I said it before, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I think this guy, when he's healthy, is a top 10 quarterback borderline in the league. You could say he's just on the outside looking in, but no matter what, that's a hard thing to replace at the NFL level, and I think he is more than talented enough to lead a Super Bowl team if you put a good enough product around him. So I think they made a great decision by bringing him back, even if the price might be a little bit high.
Did you just say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know?
You've never heard that saying before?
I've never heard about that saying.
Yeah, the devil you know is better than... So you know what you're getting out of Dak Prescott. I'd rather deal with that and try and build a contender around him.
I get it, but I wouldn't want to know any devils.
Oh, no, of course not. In a perfect world, but there's no such thing as a perfect world.
Okay, so they have some pending free agents. Tyrone Crawford, Sean Lee, Andy Dalton, Alden Smith, Blake Bell, Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, Xavier Woods, Antoine Woods, and Joe Looney, their starting center. For me, all of these guys can go. You know, the only two guys that I would keep are Alden Smith and Xavier Woods. I wouldn't keep Awuzie because I think Awuzie, his market is going to be $8.5 million. He's a good corner, average to good corner, but I'm not paying him that much money. I can get Richard Sherman for $2 million more. So why am I paying Awuzie that much? I'm not going to go Awuzie. Jordan Lewis maybe, but I still would let him walk. Sean Lee, too injury prone. Alden Smith, I'd like to keep him because Alden Smith missed 5 years of football, and this past year had a pretty okay year with the Dallas Cowboys. Imagine him with an offseason to prepare his body. I think he's going to be ready. So I would re-sign Alden Smith if they don't get a guy like Shaq Barrett in free agency.
You kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. The only guys that I would even consider bringing back would be Alden Smith and Xavier Woods. And the only way I would bring those guys back is if I don't think I can get better options in free agency, and I think you can upgrade both of those positions with the way they've restructured contracts. But I would definitely take a look at them, see what their market is looking like, and I would consider bringing those two back. Everybody else can go.
So as I was preparing for this video, somebody had told me that Donovan Wilson is actually a really good strong safety. And because of that, the Cowboys shouldn't go out and get a strong safety. I didn't watch the Cowboys extensively last season, so I can't tell you if that's true or not. But I'm going to take their word for it. So because Donovan Wilson is a good strong safety, the team needs our free safety, cornerback, outside linebacker, defensive tackle, and center. So at free safety, of course, the big name is Anthony Harris from Minnesota. You know, he's the guy that he can cover. He's rangy. He would be a perfect fit with the Dallas Cowboys. At cornerback, you got guys like Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, Shaquille Griffin, Desmond King, William Jackson, and Kevin King. At that position, I'm honing in on two guys. Richard Sherman, because he played in Dan Quinn's system and he knows the cover 3 scheme, and Kevin King. Mike McCarthy, when he was with Green Bay, drafted Kevin King in the second round. Right now, if the Cowboys were to get Richard Sherman, they would have a corner who can cover the boundary and can play on the outside. Kevin King is more of a slot corner. He struggles covering on the outside. Because of that, I think Kevin King would be a perfect fit being a slot corner, and you can have Richard Sherman, Kevin King maybe Trayvon Diggs, but I think the Cowboys are going to draft a corner in this draft too.
Yeah, and when you look at that secondary, I think you look at the safety position, Anthony Harris. With the money they've freed up, they've put themselves in a position to go after the big names. So I think Marcus May, before he got tagged, would have been a perfect fit for him. Unfortunately, he's no longer available. So I would say Anthony Harris, Marcus Williams is another guy they could target there. And then at the cornerback position, I think Richard Sherman and Patrick Peterson are both guys who, going into the twilight of their career here, I think they're looking for a contender that they would want to take a pay cut. You look at Richard Sherman, he's also been linked to the Jets because of Saleh, but I think he would be enticed by a contender where he would take a pay cut and not only play a role on, a championship level team, but also I have the Cowboys looking at cornerback in the draft. Having Richard Sherman in your cornerback room, I think he said he wants to play 2 more years, if I'm not mistaken. So having that veteran leadership in the cornerback room would be huge for whichever rookie they're bringing in. So I would look at those guys. But I think you mentioned the guy that should be their prized possession in free agency, and that's Shaq Barrett. He should be at the top of pretty much every list of every team in the league in this free agency. If you can get him, you give him whatever he wants. He is a game-changing talent at that edge rusher spot. If they can bring him in, it really boosts them to a different level.
So Richard Sherman, market value is about $10 million per year. Shaq Barrett, I'm assuming, is going to be about $20 million because he is a premier edge rusher. Realistically, if the Cowboys were to sign both, they'd spend $30 million and have $19 million in cap space left. So let's just say they do that.
And before you go any further, is that taking into consideration the money they'd have to pay their draft picks?
Draft picks is about, I think, maybe $6 to $7 million. So they'd have about maybe $13 million left. So let's just say they do that. And that's the reason I wouldn't do it. I think they have to stick to one real legit game changer and then another guy who's like good but not great. So at defensive tackle, Dalvin Tomlinson, K'Wan Short, Jarrell Casey, Ndamukong Suh, Daquan Jones, Jonathan Hankins, Adam Butler. There are a lot of good defensive tackles. I mean, can they bring back Gerald McCoy for a year on a low contract? K'Wan Short, a former Pro Bowler, Jarrell Casey as well, and Ndamukong Suh. They have a lot of options, defensive tackle.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an issue at all to, it's a good problem to only have money for one game-changing talent. There's been a bunch of teams that we've gone through in these off-season previews that barely even have money to bring their own guys back, let alone bring in one difference maker. And I don't think this Cowboys roster is that far off. So bringing in one guy with the impact of a Shaq Barrett could turn this team to a title contender if Dak Prescott comes back healthy. So I think they're in a really good spot with the money they've freed up.
So they have
because when I saw the Dak contract, I was like, I don't see how they're going to make this work. But I got to give them credit because they've done a good job freeing up cap, especially for this
The reason they could do that is because every player on the Cowboys, most of the good players at least, have a clause in their contract that the Cowboys can transfer their cap hit to their signing bonus whenever they want. And all they have to do is send an email, and then they create cap space. So they have that luxury. But I don't think they have to replace Sean Lee in free agency because I think this is a linebacker-heavy class. So we'll address that in the draft. And at center, you got guys like Ted Karras, Austin Reiter, and Alex Mack. I know they drafted a center last year out of Wisconsin. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try. But I don't think he's ready to play yet. Because of that, I think they have to sign a center. And I'm looking at Alex Mack, a former Pro Bowler, next to Lyle Collins, Tyron Smith, and Zach Martin. I mean, you can afford Connor Williams to be average because your offensive line is stacked if you get Alex Mack.
Yeah, I feel like Alex Mack has been Mr. Dependable in these offseason previews for teams that don't have that premier money at the position but are looking for a solid option at the center position. I feel like Alex Mack has been the guy to look to, and with that offensive line around him, I think it would be a really good line to put Dak Prescott behind.
So my offseason, this is who I have the Cowboys signing. Richard Sherman, Kevin King, Anthony Harris, Alex Mack, and Dalvin Tomlinson. I don't know if they can get all of those guys. Maybe you have to not get Anthony Harris, or you have to cheap out on the safety position, or not get Alex Mack. But that would be my lineup. And then they have 11 total draft picks in this draft. So they have a lot of draft capital. They have the 10th pick in the first round, And I think that 10th pick is between two players, Patrick Surtain II and Caleb Farley. Those are the two. If Surtain is there, you take him. If he's not there, you take Farley. That's it.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I have him going cornerback at the 10th overall pick. Those two guys are projecting to be, really great prospects coming into the league. They're supposed to impact your defense from day one and at a position that the Cowboys really need. If they really wanted to, it's a pretty deep cornerback class, so they could dive back into the second round and wait for an Asante Samuel Jr. type player. But I think it makes much more sense to go right out of the gates, get that cornerback where there's two great options at 10.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then there's some linebackers in this draft class who were good, like Jabril Cox, Jamin Davis, Pete Werner out of Ohio State. At center, Creed Humphrey, Quinn Miners, Landon Dickerson. At running back, who's a receiving back, Demetric Felton out of UCLA. I think he's a really good fit there. Carlos Basham, an edge rusher they can get maybe in the third round. And Dwayne Eskridge, a wide receiver, if they want to draft a wide receiver. For me, I think this draft, they draft Caleb Farley, Jamin Davis, Carlos Basham, or Ardarius Washington with their first 3 rounds. With the first picks in the first 3 rounds, I think those are the 3 guys. Drafting a corner, drafting a linebacker, and drafting a safety.
Yeah, and I really like you mentioned Jabril Cox. I think he could be a great fit with this team because of his versatility. I think he would match the Cowboys scheme really well, and I think he could fit in good from day one and move around like a Swiss Army knife in that defense.
Yep, so I mentioned earlier, this is my dream depth chart for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, Tyron Smith, Connor Williams, Alex Mack, Zach Martin, and La'el Collins. On defense, it's DeMarcus Lawrence, Dalvin Tomlinson, Alden Smith, Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, Jamin Davis, Richard Sherman, Caleb Farley, Trayvon Diggs, or Kevin King, whoever you want to slot in there at that spot, and Anthony Harris and Donovan Wilson. So I think that is a Super Bowl contending roster. We'll see if the Cowboys choose to restructure even more contracts and free up even more cap space. But I think this free agency period is going to be very exciting, and Cowboys fans should be very ecstatic about what is to come because I think there are some big-time moves that are going to happen.
Yeah, no question. They should be at least in the discussion of contenders in the NFC over the next few years.